Today we are talking about the sweet spot on pay transparency.
Like Goldilocks. Too much transparency, indigestion, not enough transparency, and people are wandering around looking into the oats, trying to figure it out. And by the way,
reading oat leaves.
When you ask people trying to figure it out, there's an incentive for people to inflate their number a little bit. And so you're not always getting the truth.
Yeah, so you're looking for just right.
Yeah. I can't think of any company that we work with unless it's a public entity, like a fire department, a city, university, where those salaries are actually subject to open records. And so in those cases, the organization is not putting that out, but in the internet era, it's not hard to figure that out. And that some places, like we're in Texas, and the Texas Tribune, which is an online journalism outfit, publishes all state workers' pay. And so you can figure out by using their data set, which they got from open records, how much everybody's making, for example, at the University of Texas. But in private organizations, I know of none that we work with where pay is open. We're 100% open.
No, not now. There are differences between how organizations act about people talking about their salary.
Yes, let's talk about that in a minute. And so I think what we're saying in this podcast is if you're a private company and you can do whatever you want, what we typically see happen is that they won't publicly talk about how much people are making.
I think they're afraid of privacy. They're like, oh, privacy,
yeah.
We have to keep it. Well,
yeah. But every time they post a job, they put a range. And so everybody basically takes either the mid to the high of that range and says, this is what these people are making. And we have 3 other people already doing this job they're hiring the 4th person for. We can assume based on how long they've been that they're probably making a little more than this. And so you get people to kind of vector in the salaries. And then as soon as you do that, you get back to what's at the nub of a lot of salary comparisons, which is your comparison other. Who are you comparing yourself to? And it's not like from the research on happiness and money, it's not the absolute amount you're making. It's how much do you think you're making in comparison to the other people who you feel like you're similar to. For example, there's an organization that we work in, and I'm trying to clean this up to not give it away, since obviously we're talking about, fairly sensitive things here. This organization has 2 different departments, and one department is paid maybe 40% more than the other, even though this department says we do almost identical to what this department does. They're both doing a kind of a customer outreach. And so the comparison other for this department making less is the higher department, and they're profoundly unhappy. In fact, they, in surveys, come back as the least happy employees. In defense of the organization says, no, you're both not doing the same thing. They're doing this more specialized work, and we have data to show that we're about median on pay for that. And you're doing this other kind of work without the specialization, and you're median for that. And so the company's leaders have a response to why the pay is off, but it's not good enough for the employees because of their comparison to the other part of the organization.
Right, they have the wrong comparison.
Yes.
And they're also, even though the organization is communicating what it values more, which is the specialization, which, by the way, that makes sense because specialization means additional training.
Yeah.
What they're saying is that's what we value, and the other employees are like devaluing basically that dimension.
Yeah.
And get on board, because if you want to make more money, you go with that specialization.
Yeah.
So, I'll give an example.
Okay. We like examples.
So, I was at a university and I was pulled in for a court case where I was testifying.
Oh, I remember this.
And so I wasn't I wasn't being
Taylor in court.
So, but I was in court testifying.
Yeah, she was not in this one rare instance.
I was not in trouble.
Not the defendant.
And basically, so I have a PhD in management. This other person has a doctorate in a related, but not as rigorous of a field.
Yeah. You were higher paid.
I was higher paid. So it was complicated because on the one hand, the person was claiming sexism. And so then the university's using me like, there's no sexism. She earns this higher rate. And then in the course of having to explain that, I had to explain, look, I'm management. I teach management. Management has alternatives in the market. And so as a result, to try to maintain the management per faculty, they pay us an approximation of like a market value. Meanwhile, finance probably makes triple what I make. And I'm not mad about that because I could have gone in finance and I decided I wanted to do people more than finance.
Yeah.
If you are sitting there upset and the organization is telling, and you can see that there's a difference. Because, I mean, that's the other way. Like, basically, that group is saying your comparison, the dimensions upon which you're comparing us are illegitimate.
Right.
Like, that specialization isn't that important.
Right.
And you can sit there and fight that, or you can look at this logically and look around at every other place you could work and see that that same specialization gets paid more. And you could either learn to live with it and stop comparing yourself to them, or go get that specialization.
Yeah. Yeah. We talk about a lot of times the manager's job is exactly what you're saying, to gently help people find the right comparison others.